Now, Texas A&M fans, y'all up? I got to make sure y'all up in there because normally every offseason, y'all be talking a lot of noise about, man, this is the year, man. We dark horse college football playoff contenders every single season. Like, we get mad at Texas fans every offseason for screaming, Texas is going to be back. The Longhorns are going to be back. But yet, why we don't keep this same energy with Texas A&M fans? Because for the last couple of years, I've been hearing a lot of talk about how Texas A&M is going to be a dark horse college football playoff contender and how it's finally going to be the year they get in. They finally break through. Well, last year it happened, and boy, shit hit the fan, boy, real fast. Like, real fast. They lost to Appalachian State. Yeah, I ain't forget about that. Y'all paid Appalachian State $1.5 million to kick y'all butt. And not only that, they kind of dominated y'all. Now, I don't care what the final box score says. If you watch that game, you would know that Appalachian State kind of gave it to Texas A&M. Like, they only had 2 offensive possessions in that whole entire game inside of Appalachian State territory. Go back and watch that game. I promise to you. And then they kind of bounced back. They beat Miami. They got out to a 3-1 start. But after they got out to a 3-1 start, ooh, things got ugly, boy. They lost 6 straight. Haynes King wasn't good. Max Johnson got injured. And then my guy, Connor Wigman, came in. And I thought he did a pretty good job as a true freshman last season. Now, his worst game was against Auburn. I ain't going to hold you like against Auburn. He didn't look good. But with the hiring of offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino, I think that Connor Wigman is going to end up becoming one of the best quarterbacks in college football this year. And honestly, a large reason why I believe Texas A&M is going to bounce back this season is because of the hiring of Bobby Petrino. Now, I know it's been a lot of debate and discussion about who's going to be calling the plays, him or Jimbo, but I expect Bobby Petrino to be calling the plays because he originally was supposed to be the OC for Barry Odom at UNLV. And then Jimbo Fisher says, hey, bro, like, you want to come be the offensive coordinator for me? He says, oh, sure. So he pretty much walks in and walks out of UNLV and comes straight to Texas A&M to be the OC for Jimbo Fisher. So I'm pretty sure Bobby Petrino would have never left UNLV if he was going to come to Texas A&M and not call the plays. And you can make it about money all you want to, bro. Like, at the end of the day, bro, Bobby Petrino just isn't a random OC. This isn't a young OC. This isn't somebody who's trying to prove himself. This is one of the most accomplished offensive-minded coaches in the sport right now. All right, now you can say he may be a little washed up, but I'm not going to overlook his track record. I remember what he did at Louisville with Lamar Jackson. All right, I still remember Ryan Mallett. Yeah, how many of y'all remember Ryan Mallett? Arkansas legend Ryan Mallett. Yeah, he had them boys rolling. He had them boys cooking. I think this offense, with Bobby Petrino calling the plays, is going to be the most explosive offense that we've seen out of Texas A&M in a very long time. Like, Jimbo Fisher, yes, he is an overrated head coach, but I don't think he's a crappy head coach. I just think that eventually you get to a point where the game kind of starts to pass you by. And eventually you kind of lose a little bit of your touch. And people used to always call Jimbo Fisher the quarterback whisperer. And I used to always say, like, man, when's the last time, like, Jimbo Fisher produced a superstar level quarterback? And last season when I said that, like, Texas A&M was like, well, you need a superstar quarterback to be good. Like, duh. But it's not like you just get one handed to you. You got to develop that. That's the job of a coach, to develop players and put players in the proper situation to succeed. And Jimbo Fisher's offense hasn't really done a great job of that when it comes to quarterbacks. The last great quarterback Jimbo Fisher had was Jameis Winston. Kellen Mond was good, but he was nowhere close to the level of Jameis Winston. And there's a lot of reasons that people point to why Jimbo Fisher's offense has kind of lost its touch over the last couple of years. Some people say it's a little bit too complicated. Some people say it's too conservative with all the doggone bubble screens and stuff like that. But as long as Jimbo Fisher can keep his hands off the offensive play calling and he let Bobby Petrino do his thing up there in the press box, I think this thing is going to work. Now, Jimbo Fisher ends up calling the plays and Bobby Petrino doesn't end up calling the plays at all, then I take back everything that I'm saying about Texas A&M right now. Okay, because I'm going to just keep it a stack with you. I don't have any confidence in Texas A&M if Jimbo Fisher is the one calling the plays. All right, Bobby Petrino is one of the best play callers in college football in the past decade. I mean, like, every coach has some bad play calling here and there, but for the most part, I think Bobby Petrino is pretty reliable. And I don't think that Jimbo Fisher will go out and hire an OC that has over 50 years of experience not to allow him to call plays. I just think that would be kind of dumb, and I just kind of think that would be an egotistical move that ends up resulting in head coaches getting fired. And I'm pretty sure Jimbo Fisher wants to remain the head coach of Texas A&M. Even though if he gets fired, he's still going to get paid regardless. But, I think Jimbo Fisher wants to stay in Texas A&M. I think he wants to stay in Aggie land. All right, now, word on the street, and this is a word on the street, a lot of Texas A&M fans say that Jimbo Fisher was kind of giving an ultimatum. Now, once again, I'm going to say this is a rumor. Some people say that the upper-ups above Jimbo Fisher, the people who cut his check, kind of said, hey, bro, you better hire an offensive coordinator unless you want to get that pink slip. So he ended up going ahead and getting one of the most experienced offensive coordinators he can get. And when you look at the talent that Texas A&M has on offense, I mean, they're loaded. Their wide receiver room is pretty good. Their top 3 receivers from last year all returned. Evan Stewart, Moose Muhammad, Anaya Smith. You had Noah Thomas, who had a fantastic spring. He should be in for a breakout season. He was a 4-star receiver coming out of that 2022 recruiting cycle. This dude is 6'5", 195 pounds. With the arm that Connor Wigman has, this dude should be a really big part of generating the explosive plays in the passing game. And that's the thing that you're looking for if you're an A&M fan. Over the last 2 seasons, you struggled to generate big plays. I think you ranked near the bottom of college football and passing plays or explosive plays for more than 20 yards. So for Bobby Petrino, you're going to give him a really good receiver room to work with. We already know they lost Devin A-Chain, who pretty much was one of the best things to watch about Texas A&M last season other than the defense. But Texas A&M does a pretty good job recruiting the running back position. So I don't think it's going to be a huge drop-off there. Now, this defense, I'm not really concerned about the defense. Yes, I know that their run defense wasn't good and they did struggle to get pressure on the quarterback, but I expect both of those things to improve. When I look at Texas A&M's run defense, I think it was more so poor execution, guys not filling the holes, guys not really filling those gaps. I think this season that should improve. The linebacker unit should improve. And when you look at this secondary, I mean, everybody talks about how talented Alabama's secondary is going into this year. Texas A&M secondary, I think, is almost as good. And I do say almost. I'm not going to say as good because Alabama has some dogs in their secondary, but I don't think Texas A&M is too far off. You got Tyreek Chappelle. You have Tony Grimes transferred from UNC. You got a really good group of safeties. Your defensive line, you got Shamar Turner, Walter Nolan. I mean, this is a really good defense. My only concern really is the linebacker unit. And I'm not really worried about the defense. Their defense last year could have been a lot better if their offense wasn't going 3 and out or wasn't having costly turnovers and just was inefficient. A lot of people tend to forget this, but the key to having success on defense is by having an offense that complements you. If your offense is constantly turning the football over, putting you in bad field position, or going 3 and out, imagine being a defensive tackle, right? You get a stop right after, an 8 to 9 play drive, and you finally get a team to punt the ball, and then you just get done getting a sip of that Gatorade, and all of a sudden you got to go right back on the field because your offense just went 3 and out after you just got to stop. So imagine that. Of course, your defense is going to end up not being as good as what it possibly could be because they're going to be on the field for more plays than what they should be. I think that's kind of common sense. I think we can all agree with that, right? So with the offense improving, the defense should improve because the defense isn't going to be on the field as much unless they're running like a Tennessee kind of offense, which I doubt that's going to happen. But for the most part, this defense, I think, is going to be really good. And as long as Bobby Petrino is able to do his thing and Jimbo Fisher isn't meddling and lets the dude call the plays, I think that Texas A&M is going to bounce back. I really love Connor Wigman. Like, when I watch him, he kind of reminds me of Dak Prescott, but with a way stronger arm. I mean, in that Texas A&M spring game, I know it's a spring game, but Connor Wigman was making some really nice throws and some really NFL level throws. Like, he was making throws in the tight windows. I was really impressed with what I saw out of Connor Wigman, not just in the spring game, but in a few games that he started in last year. I think that this guy has a lot of potential. But Texas A&M, if Bobby Petrino is able to, call the plays and run the offense with little to no interference with Jimbo Fisher, I think Texas A&M should be able to win 7 to 10 games this season. Now, last year, I didn't even have Texas A&M making it to a bowl game. Just keeping it stacked. Now, a little bit of that was me wanting to stick it to some of you Texas A&M fans because some of you Texas A&M fans kind of blow me. Like, I'm just keeping it being like, it was one person I was going back and forth talking about some, you don't know nothing about football. Like, Jimbo Fisher hasn't had this. He hasn't had that. Like, bruh, he is a head coach. He recruits these guys. And now we got NIL, so now you pretty much can pay the best players out of high school to come play for you. So it's like, stop telling me what he didn't have. Stop blaming it on injuries, bro. At the end of the day, bro, Jimbo Fisher has been unable to develop a good, competent quarterback since Jameis Winston. And if you want to use Kellen Mond, okay, but Jimbo Fisher kind of is a little bit of the reason why Texas A&M season went the way it did last year. Not even kind of. He was the full reason why it went the way that it did last year because going into last year, Texas A&M, according to 247 Sports Team Talent Composite Ranking, had the 4th most talented roster in America. You can say, well, JT, we didn't have depth, we didn't have this, bruh. If you're a good coach, you find a way to get it done. So this year, no excuses. All right? If Jimbo Fisher lets Bobby Petrino cook, I think things are going to work out pretty well in Texas A&M's favor. And with how talented they are, it's like, there's not really a single game that you can look on their schedule and say they don't have a chance at winning. Honestly, like I truthfully believe that they could go in and beat Alabama this season. Like I think that this is the most skeptical I've ever been about Alabama going into a season. Like normally, Alabama, you look at their quarterback position, you kind of already know who the guy's going to be, and you already know that he's going to be pretty good. But this year, you don't really know what the hell you're going to get out of the quarterback position. So for Texas A&M, man, like, you talk about a team that's kind of being a little bit overlooked. This was a team that, prior to last season, everybody always used to gas up and be like, oh, man, like, Texas A&M is going to be a dark horse playoff contender. And now all of a sudden, they go 5-7, and then people kind of just done throwing them to the woods and forgot about them. I ain't forget about y'all. Y'all had a down year. Jimbo Fisher needed a little bit of that humble pie. And even then, we're still waiting to see if he truthfully is going to hand the play calling duties off to Bobby Petrino. But this Texas A&M team, from a talent standpoint, I think they're really good. Their offensive line is one of the best in the SEC. They got a veteran group. They have a lot of guys who are going to be playing this season, who soon will be playing on Sundays. You got a really good group of receivers. You got a good quarterback. Jimbo Fisher on National Signing Day, when Connor Wigman had signed his letter of intent, and he was talking about Connor Wigman, he was like, he believed that Connor Wigman was the best quarterback out of that whole entire class. And he wasn't being biased. Like, he truthfully believed that. And I believe him. Like, with the money that Texas A&M be dishing out to these recruits, I'm pretty sure they could have gotten any quarterback they wanted. Most of them. I think Texas A&M is going to bounce back. I mean, if this offense ends up being better under Bobby Petrino, then truthfully, like, what game can you look at on Texas A&M's schedule and say, hey, nah, they're not going to beat that team? I mean, they have one of the most talented rosters in college football. The only thing that has held them back kind of has been Jimbo Fisher and his lackluster offense. So with Bobby Petrino, as long as Bobby Petrino is able to get handed the keys to the Lamborghini, I think Texas A&M should be winning 7 games minimum, 10, maybe 11 games max. Hell, maybe they could go to the SEC championship. Like, that's how good I believe Texas A&M's team is this year. I really think the only question mark with Texas A&M is going to be the coaching. Are Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher going to get along? Are they going to be able to coexist? I believe they're going to find a way to make it work. All right. I think Texas A&M is going to be back in 2023. And I'm not somebody who normally is on the Texas A&M bandwagon. Like, I'm normally one of those people that's always telling A&M fans, man, y'all boys ain't going to do nothing this year. But I truthfully believe that this could be the season that Texas A&M kind of ends up being that team that many people thought they could be for the couple of seasons prior to 2022. So we're just going to take last season and ball it up and throw it into the trash and act like it didn't happen and look at this Texas A&M team for what they are right now. One of the most talented teams in college football with one of the most experienced offensive coordinators in the game, and Bobby Petrino, somebody who specializes in being able to get the most out of quarterbacks with a really talented roster. Texas A&M, I expect them to bounce back, and I expect them to be a factor in the SEC West, at least when it comes to determining who's going to end up representing that side of the SEC in the conference championship game.